Hi, subscribe and like this one. This is the story of Sarah, a maid who lost custody of her daughter to the wealthy executive father because she was poor. But her culinary talents earned her the 100 million. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the Whitmore Industries headquarters as Sarah Mitchell pushed her cleaning cart through the executive wing. Her weathered hands, marked by years of hard work, gripped the mop handle with practiced ease. At 42, she had been cleaning these offices for 15 years. Invisible to most who passed by in their expensive suits. "Sarah, you missed a spot," barked Mr. Whitmore, the CEO, pointing to an imaginary stain near his office door. She nodded silently, knowing better than to argue, as she knelt to clean the already spotless floor. Her wedding ring caught the light of simple band she still wore despite the divorce 3 years ago. The memory hit her like a wave. David, her ex-husband, had been so different then. A successful marketing executive in this very building. He'd swept her off her feet with promises of a better life. They'd had Emma together, their beautiful daughter, now 8 years old. But when the company downsized and David lost his job, everything crumbled. Daddy's home. She could still hear Emma's excited squeals from those happier days. Now, Emma lived with David in a cramped apartment across town, visiting Sarah only on weekends. The custody arrangement had been David's idea. He'd insisted he could provide better, even unemployed, that a cleaning lady could die as Sarah finished mopping. Her phone buzzed, a text from her sister Maria. "Sarah, you need to see this. There's a competition for new food products. First prize is $50,000. It's startup funding. You should enter with your mac and cheese." Sarah's heart skipped. 4 years. She'd been perfecting a unique macaroni and cheese recipe, a perfect blend of 5 American cheeses, with a secret ingredient that made it irresistibly creamy. Everyone who tried it begged for the recipe, but she'd kept it close, dreaming of someday doing something with it. That evening, Sarah sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the competition application. Her hands trembled as she began typing her story, her vision for Sarah's Southern Gold mac and cheese. She didn't understand all the business terms, but she poured her heart into describing her recipe. "I'm going to do this," she whispered to herself, hitting submit. For Emma, for all of us. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work to find chaos. Mr. Whitmore was screaming at his assistant about a missing contract worth millions. As everyone scrambled, Sarah noticed something, a folder that had fallen behind the water cooler. She picked it up, recognizing the contract everyone was searching for. For a moment, she hesitated. These people had treated her as less than human for years. But then she thought of Emma, of the mother she wanted her daughter to see her as. She walked into Mr. Whitmore's office. "Double quote, sir. I found your contract." Whitmore snatched it from her hands without a thank you, but his assistant, Jennifer, saw everything. As Sarah left the office, Jennifer followed. "That was incredible. Sarah, you saved the day." Jennifer lowered her voice. "I'm one of the judges for that food competition. I saw your application. Your mac and cheese idea is wonderful." Sarah's eyes widened. "You can't, that wouldn't be fair. I'm recusing myself from judging." Jennifer smiled. "But I wanted you to know you have something special. I've actually tried your mac and cheese at the office potluck. It's unlike anything I've ever tasted." That night, Sarah called Emma. "Mommy has a surprise coming," she said, her voice full of hope for the first time in years. "Really, Mommy? What is it?" Emma's voice was music to her ears. "Remember Mommy's special mac and cheese you love? I might be able to share it with the whole world." As she hung up, Sarah didn't know that across town, David was staring at an eviction notice, his hands shaking. He looked at Emma sleeping peacefully on the couch, and a terrible plan began forming in his mind. 3 weeks had passed since Sarah submitted her application, and life continued its relentless rhythm. Each morning, she arrived at Whitmore Industries before dawn, her footsteps echoing in empty hallways. But something had changed within her, a spark of possibility that made even the most mundane tasks feel purposeful. Mrs. Mitchell, a young man in a crisp suit, approached her as she cleaned the conference room. "I'm James Chen from the Business Innovation Committee. We'd like to schedule your presentation for next Tuesday." Sarah nearly dropped her mop. "My presentation? You're one of our top 10 finalists." He smiled warmly. "Didn't you receive our email?" Her heart pounded. She'd been checking her old flip phone for calls, not realizing they'd send an email to the library account she'd used to apply. "Yes, of course, Tuesday. I'll be there." That evening, she practically ran to the public library. Maria was already there, having received Sarah's breathless phone call. Together, they read through the email, the presentation requirements, the panel of judges. Sarah, they want business plans, profit projections, market analysis, Maria said. Worriedly, do you have any of that? Sarah's heart sank. I just have my recipe. I don't know about business plans. We'll figure it out, Maria said, though she looked concerned. Let's do our best. They spent hours at the library trying to understand business terms on Google. Sarah created a simple PowerPoint with photos of her mac and cheese and basic ingredient costs she calculated on napkins. Meanwhile, across the city, David Mitchell sat in his dark apartment, unemployment benefits exhausted, pride shattered. Emma was at school, and he stared at the eviction notice that had arrived that morning. 3 days. They had 3 days before they'd be on the street. He picked up his phone, scrolling through his contacts. All his former colleagues had stopped returning his calls months ago. His family had written him off as a failure. There was only one person who might help, but the thought of calling her made his stomach turn. Sarah, his ex-wife, the woman he left because he couldn't bear for her to see him as less than the successful man she'd married. Daddy, I'm hungry, Emma said when she came home from school. David looked in the refrigerator empty except for a jar of peanut butter and some bread. We'll have sandwiches again tonight, Princess, he said, forcing a smile. That's okay, Daddy. When I see Mommy this weekend, she always makes her special mac and cheese. It's the best in the whole world. David's heart clenched. Even now, even with nothing, Sarah managed to give Emma what he couldn't, not just food, but warmth, love, stability. That night, after Emma was asleep, David made a decision that would haunt him forever. He began packing their few belongings. If he couldn't provide for his daughter, if he couldn't be the father she deserved, then maybe it would be better if they just disappeared. He left a note on the kitchen table. I'm taking Emma somewhere safe. I'll contact you when I figure things out. I'm sorry. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work with nervous energy. She had 5 days until the presentation, but she knew her simple slides weren't enough. She didn't understand profit margins or market penetration. You're worried about something, Jennifer observed, bringing in coffee for her boss. Sarah hesitated, then admitted the presentation. They want business plans. I only know how to cook. Jennifer's face softened. Sarah, your strength is your authenticity. Don't try to be something you're not. Be honest about what you know and what you don't. If only she knew that at that very moment. David was driving out of the city with Emma, who thought they were just going on a surprise vacation. If only she knew that her world was about to shatter just as it was beginning to shine. Tuesday arrived with unseasonable warmth for October. Sarah stood before the mirror in the church bathroom, adjusting the borrowed suit Maria had found through their congregation. It wasn't perfect, a bit loose in the shoulders, slightly faded, but it was professional. She looked like someone who belonged in a boardroom, even if she didn't feel it. You've got this, she whispered to her reflection. Thinking of Emma, everything was for Emma. The innovation center bustled with nervous energy. Entrepreneurs of all ages filled the waiting area, each clutching folders and laptops. Sarah carried a small cooler with samples of her mac and cheese, her only real asset. Sarah Mitchell, a volunteer, called. You're up next. The conference room seemed enormous. 5 judges sat behind a long table, their expressions neutral but not unkind. Sarah's hands trembled as she set up her simple presentation. Good morning, she began, her voice shaking slightly. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I make the best mac and cheese in America. She told them about her recipe, how she'd spent years perfecting it, how everyone who tried it begged for more. She showed them her simple slides with photos and basic ingredient costs. Mrs. Mitchell, one judge interrupted. Where's your business plan? Sarah's face flushed. I don't have one. I'm a cleaning lady. I don't know about business plans. I just know that my mac and cheese makes people happy. What about production costs, scaling, distribution channels? Another judge pressed. Sarah felt tears threatening. I don't know those things. I'm sorry. I thought having a good product was enough. The judges exchanged glances. One of them, a woman with silver hair, spoke gently. Mrs. Mitchell, your mac and cheese is indeed delicious, but a business needs more than a good recipe. Can you teach me? Sarah asked desperately. I can learn. I just need a chance. That's not how this works, the stern-faced judge said. We invest in businesses, not cooking lessons. Sarah served her samples anyway, watching their faces light up at the taste. But she knew it wasn't enough. As she packed up her things, the silver-haired judge approached. Your product is exceptional, she said quietly, but you need a business partner, someone who understands the financial side. Without that, I'm afraid, Sarah nodded, holding back tears. She'd been foolish to think she could compete with MBA letters and professional entrepreneurs. She was just a cleaning lady with a good recipe. She left the building in a daze, calling Maria. I failed. They asked about things I don't understand, business plans and markets, and her phone rang, a known number. Sarah? The voice was familiar, but wrong. David never sounded this desperate. Sarah, I need your help. Her blood ran cold. David, what's wrong? Is Emma okay? She's fine. We're both fine. But Sarah, I have done something stupid. I took her. We left the city. I got evicted and I panicked and you what? Sarah's scream echoed across the parking lot. Where's my daughter? We're at a motel. Highway 87, about 2 hours north. Sarah, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I can't provide for her anymore. David Mitchell, you listen to me. Sarah's voice turned to steel. You stay right where you are. Don't you dare move. I'm coming for my baby. Sarah, I need money for gas to bring her back. I've got nothing left. I'm so sorry. Sarah closed her eyes. Professional failure forgotten in the face of maternal terror. How much? $200. Sarah, I know I have no right to ask. Text me the motel address. I'll be there in 3 hours. She hung up and immediately called Maria. I need your car and all the money you have. David took Emma. The Sunset Lodge Motel squatted beside the highway like a forgotten relic, its neon sign flickering weakly in the afternoon sun. Sarah was out of the car before Maria had fully stopped, her heart hammering against her ribs. Room 12 was at the far end, its curtains drawn tight. Sarah knocked, her knuckles white. David, Emma, it's me. The door opened a crack and David's face appeared gaunt, unshaven, eyes red-rimmed. He looked like a stranger, wearing her ex-husband's skin. Mommy, Emma's voice came from inside, and Sarah pushed past David without ceremony. Her daughter sat on the bed, still in her school uniform. Clutching the stuffed elephant Sarah had given her last Christmas, Emma launched herself into Sarah's arms, and Sarah held her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. Baby, are you okay? Are you hurt? Sarah pulled back to examine Emma's face. I'm okay, Mommy. Daddy said we were going on an adventure, but then he started crying and I got scared. I missed you, and I'm hungry. There's no food here like your mac and cheese. No, baby, never at you. Sarah smoothed Emma's hair, then looked at David. He stood by the door like he might bolt, shoulders hunched in defeat. Emma, honey, why don't you go with Aunt Maria to get some snacks from the vending machine? Sarah handed Maria some bills from her purse. Once they were alone, Sarah turned to David. The anger she'd felt during the drive had transformed into something more complex. Seeing him like this, broken, desperate, barely holding together. Talk, she said simply. David sank onto the bed, head in his hands. I got the eviction notice Monday. 3 days, Sarah. 3 days before they'd throw us out. I've applied to over 100 jobs. Nothing. My unemployment ran out. I sold everything, my watch, my father's cufflinks, even my laptop. I had $40 left to my name. So you kidnapped our daughter? I didn't. He stopped, laughed bitterly. Yeah, I did. I thought if I could just get away, start fresh somewhere. But then we got here, and Emma started asking for you. And I realized I'm just a failure running from my failures. Sarah sat beside him, careful to keep distance between them. David, I failed to, today, at the competition. He looked up, surprised. What? They wanted business plans, financial projections, things I don't understand. I stood there like a fool with my mac and cheese samples while they talked about markets and scaling. She laughed bitterly. The cleaning lady thought she could be a businesswoman. Sarah, no. Your mac and cheese is incredible. Doesn't matter. Good food isn't enough. I need someone who understands business, finances, all the things you used to do. She paused, looking at him. All the things you're good at. David stared at her. Sarah, I'm unemployed. I just kidnapped our daughter. I'm not good at anything anymore. You're still the man who ran million-dollar marketing campaigns, who understood spreadsheets and projections. That knowledge didn't disappear with your job. They sat in silence for a moment, both processing their failures. Finally, David spoke. What are you saying? Sarah took a deep breath. I'm saying maybe we both failed alone because we were supposed to succeed together. I have the product. You have the business knowledge. Emma needs both her parents stable and working. You want to go into business with your ex-husband who just kidnapped your daughter. I want to build something with Emma's father, Sarah corrected. Someone who knows. My weakness is his strength. David's eyes filled with tears. Sarah, I've lost everything. My confidence, my pride. Then let's build something new, together, for Emma. The weeks following the motel incident passed in a blur of tentative partnership. David and Emma moved into Sarah's tiny apartment, a practical solution that felt strange but necessary. Sarah gave them her bedroom, sleeping on the couch, while they figured out their next steps. Daddy, why are you drawing so many charts? Emma asked one evening, finding David surrounded by papers at the kitchen table. Because Mommy and I are going to start a business together, Princess, he said, showing her his work. See, this shows how many servings of mac and cheese we need to sell to pay our bills. Sarah watched from the doorway, still in her cleaning uniform. It had been 2 weeks since they'd decided to work together, and David had thrown himself into creating a business, planned with the desperation of a drowning man finding a lifeline. I've been thinking, David said after Emma went to bed, we can't compete with big food companies. But what if we didn't try to? What if we started a smaller food truck? Sarah sat beside him, looking at his calculations. A food truck, lower overhead than a restaurant. We could test the market, build a following. I found a used truck for $15,000. If we could somehow get financing, with what credit? Sarah asked gently. You're bankrupt, and I'm a cleaning lady. David's shoulders slumped. You're right. Stupid idea. No, Sarah said firmly. It's a good idea. We just need to find another way. At work the next day, Sarah cleaned with unusual focus, her mind on David's plans. During her break, Jennifer found her in the supply closet. Sarah, I heard about the competition. I'm sorry. Sarah shrugged. I wasn't ready, but I'm not giving up. Jennifer studied her. You seem different, more determined. My ex-husband and I are working together now. He's brilliant with business. He just needs a second chance, like I do. Your ex-husband? The one who... Jennifer stopped. Sorry, not my business. The one who lost his way, Sarah said simply, but he's finding it again. We both are. That weekend, they took Emma to a fall festival, trying to feel like a family again. As they walked among the food vendors, David studied each setup, taking notes. What about starting even smaller? He said suddenly, farmers markets, festivals. Build a reputation first. Sarah's eyes lit up. We could do that. The equipment cost would be about $3,000 for a basic setup. David finished. Still more than we have, but manageable. Emma tugged on their hands. Are you going to make mac and cheese for everyone? That's the plan, baby, Sarah said. Good. Then everyone can be as happy as me when I eat it. That night, after Emma was asleep, Sarah and David spread their plans across the small living room floor. Financial projections, equipment lists, venue research. David had thought of everything. You know what we need, Sarah said suddenly. A name, not just Sarah's Southern Gold. Something that means more. David was quiet for a moment. What about Emma's table? After all, we're doing this for her. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. That's perfect. They worked until dawn, refining their plan. As the sun rose, David looked at Sarah with something she hadn't seen in years. Hope. We can really do this, he said wonderingly. Together, Sarah agreed. But we need $3,000 we don't have. I'll figure it out, David said with new determination. I've got an interview tomorrow night shift at the call center. It's not much, but it's a start. I'll keep saving every penny, and I'll perfect some new recipes, mac and cheese variations. They were interrupted by Emma padding out in her pajamas. Why are you up so early? Planning our future, Princess, David said, lifting her into his lap. Is it a good future? Emma asked sleepily. Sarah and David exchanged glances over their daughter's head. For the first time in years, they could answer honestly. Double quotes. Yes, baby, it's going to be a very good future. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the tiny kitchen they'd rented in a shared commercial space. stirring a massive pot of her signature mac and cheese. The smell filled the air, comfort and dreams mixed together. Outside, David was setting up their first booth at the Riverside Farmers Market. "Sarah, we need for more family portions," David called out, his voice carrying a confidence she hadn't heard in over a year. The call center job had been grueling, but he'd saved every penny while studying food service regulations at night. "Coming up," she called back, ladling the golden mixture into containers. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, but her heart raced. This was at their first real day as Emma's Table. They'd scraped together $3.00 through a combination of David's earnings, Sarah's savings, and a small loan from their church. Every dollar had been carefully allocated used equipment, permits, a banner with their logo, and enough ingredients for their first weekend. Mommy, Emma ran in, wearing the small apron David had surprised her with. "There's a line. People are waiting for your mac and cheese." Sarah hurried out to see. Indeed, a dozen people stood waiting, drawn by the smell and David's enthusiastic samples. He worked the crowd like the marketing executive he'd once been, but with genuine warmth now. "Best mac and cheese in the state," he called out, "made with love, served with pride." The first customer, an elderly woman, took a bite and her eyes widened. "Oh my, this reminds me of my grandmother's cooking, but even better." "That's the best compliment we could ask for," Sarah said, beaming. The morning flew by in a blur of orders, compliments, and empty containers. By noon, they'd sold out completely, all 50 portions gone. "We did it," David said, staring at the empty warmers. "Sarah, we actually did it. Sold out on our first day." Sarah breathed, hardly believing it. "How much did we make?" David quickly calculated. "After costs, $340 profit. If we can do this every weekend, we can save for a food truck within a year." Sarah finished. Emma danced between them. "Does this mean we're not poor anymore?" Sarah and David exchanged glances. "We're building something, baby," Sarah said carefully. "It takes time." As they packed up, other vendors stopped by to congratulate them. Word spread quickly at farmers markets, and several asked if they'd be back next week. Every week, David promised. Same spot, same great food. That evening, they celebrated with pizza, a luxury they hadn't afforded in months. Emma fell asleep between them on the couch, exhausted from the excitement. "You know what the best part was?" David said quietly. "Working together, we make a good team." Sarah nodded. "We always did. We just forgot for a while." Sarah, David hesitated. "I know we're doing this for Emma, for business, but being around you these months, seeing you believe in me when no one else would, I need you to know how grateful I am. We saved each other," Sarah said simply. "That's what family does." The next morning brought unexpected news. Jennifer called. "From Whitmore Industries. Sarah, I have a proposition. Mr. Whitmore is hosting a corporate event next month, 500 employees. He wants local food vendors. I suggested Emma's Table." Sarah's heart stopped. "He hates me. He'll never. He doesn't know it's you. I registered you under the business name. It's a $5,000 contract." "Sarah, this could change everything." Sarah found David preparing inventory lists. "Sit down," she said. "You're not going to believe this." As she explained, David's face went from shock to calculation to determination. "We can do this. We'll need to rent extra equipment, hire help, but the profit margin." "David," Sarah interrupted. "It's Whitmore Industries, where we both used to work, where I failed." He finished. "I know, but Sarah, this is our chance to go back different, better, together." That night, as they planned menus and logistics, Sarah watched David work with a mixture of pride and something deeper. He'd been broken, had done something terrible in taking Emma, but he fought his way back. They both had. "I have something to tell you," David said suddenly. "I've been thinking about the future, not just the business, us." Sarah's heart skipped. "David, I'm not asking for anything now," he said quickly. "I know I have to earn it, but Sarah, working beside you, raising Emma together, building this dream. I remember why I fell in love with you." Before Sarah could respond, Emma's voice called from the bedroom. "Mommy, Daddy, I had a bad dream." They both went to her, sitting on either side of her bed. "What was it about, Princess?" David asked. "I dreamed you'd had to go away again, to different places." Sarah smoothed her daughter's hair. "We're not going anywhere, baby. We're a team now. Forever?" Emma asked sleepily. Sarah and David's eyes met over their daughter's head. So much had happened: pain, failure, kidnapping, forgiveness, but also growth, partnership, and maybe hope for something more. We're working on forever, David said softly. As Emma drifted back to sleep, Sarah and David returned to their planning. The Whitmore contract loomed large, a test of their business and their partnership. But for the first time in years, they faced the challenge together. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to build, one pot of mac and cheese at a time. The morning of the Whitmore Industries event arrived with threatening clouds, and Sarah's nerves stretched thin. They'd spent the last month preparing testing recipes for large batches, renting industrial equipment, even hiring the temporary helpers. The $5,000 contract could launch them into a real restaurant. But first, they had to survive this day. Double-check the transport containers, David called out, his clipboard in hand as he supervised the loading. At 5 a.m., their rented kitchen buzzed with activity. Sarah, how's the signature batch? Perfect, she said, though her hands trembled as she stirred. She barely slept, haunted by the thought of serving her former tormentors, especially Mr. Whitmore. Emma sat on a stack of boxes, still in pajamas, eating cereal Maria had brought. Why are you both so nervous? It's just mac and cheese. It's 500 servings of mac and cheese, baby, Sarah said. For very important people. You mean mean people, Emma said innocently. Daddy told me they weren't nice to you, David shot Sarah. An apologetic look. Emma, that's not. It's okay, Sarah interrupted. Yes, some of them weren't nice, but we're going to be professional and show them what we can do. The drive to Whitmore Industries felt surreal. David gripped the wheel of their rented van, stealing glances at Sarah. We can still turn back. Tell them we're sick. No, Sarah said firmly. We face this together. They entered through the service entrance, the same door Sarah had used for 15 years. The security guard, Marcus, did a double take. Sarah, that you? Heard you were doing big things now. Just trying, Marcus, she smiled. This is my business partner, David. David shook Marcus's hand, and Sarah saw him straighten his shoulders. Being introduced as her partner, not her ex-husband, meant something. The corporate dining hall had been transformed for the employee appreciation event. Banners hung from the ceiling, round tables filled the space, and a stage awaited speeches. Their station was prominent. Jennifer had made sure of that. Start setup. David instructed their helpers. I want serving lines ready in 30 minutes. Sarah lost herself in the familiar rhythm of preparation. Mac and cheese was just the main dish. They'd also prepared cornbread, coleslaw, and apple cobbler. Southern comfort meets corporate dining, as David had pitched it. Well, what do we have here? Sarah froze. Mr. Whitmore stood before their station, his eyes narrowing as recognition dawned. Mitchell, you're the vendor. Yes, sir, Sarah said, lifting her chin. This is Emma's table. We're your featured food vendor today. Whitmore's face reddened. This is highly inappropriate. You're an employee, former employee. David stepped forward. Sarah resigned last week to focus on our business. Everything was handled properly through HR. Sarah blinked. She hadn't resigned. She'd been planning to. But you are? Whitmore turned his cold gaze on David. David Mitchell, co-owner of Emma's table and Sarah's business partner. Whitmore's eyes widened slightly. Mitchell, from marketing. You were terminated 2 years ago. I was laid off, David corrected calmly, and it was the best thing that happened to me. Let me back to what matters. The tension crackled until Jennifer appeared. Mr. Whitmore, the program's about to start. Shall we? After Whitmore stopped off, Sarah turned to David. I didn't resign. You did. I submitted the paperwork yesterday. You're free, Sarah. No more cleaning his offices. Tears pricked her eyes. But if this fails, it won't, David said firmly, and if it does, we'll figure it out. Together. The lunch service began, and any fears evaporated in the face of overwhelming demand. Employees lined up, drawn by the aroma and word of mouth from those who tried first. Oh my God, this is incredible. Is this really mac and cheese? It's like heaven. Can we get your card? Do you cater? Sarah ladled and smiled, while David worked the crowd, handing out business cards they printed just yesterday. Emma, who changed into her little chef's outfit, charmed everyone by helping serve dessert. Then the moment Sarah had dreaded, Mr. Whitmore approached for his serving. The room seemed to quiet. Sir, Sarah said professionally, serving him a generous portion. He took a bite, his expression unreadable. The room waited. He paused, and Sarah held her breath. This is exceptional. Applause broke out. Whitmore looked irritated at having to compliment her, but couldn't deny the quality. He walked away without another word. But the damage was done. The CEO had approved. The rest of service flew by. They served all 500 meals, ran out of dessert, and collected over 200 business card requests. As they packed up, employees kept stopping to thank them. You know, Jennifer said, helping them load. The company's looking for a permanent cafeteria vendor. The contract's worth $200,000 annually. David dropped a pan. Sarah gasped. I'll make sure you get the RFP. Jennifer winked. No guarantees. But after today, on the drive home, Emma asleep in the back seat, Sarah and David sat in stunned silence. Finally, David spoke. Did that really happen? $200,000, Sarah whispered. David, that's life-changing money. We need a real restaurant, staff, equipment. His mind was already working. But Sarah, we could do it. We really could. Sarah reached over and took his hand. Thank you for the resignation, for believing, for everything. David squeezed back. We're just getting started. 2 weeks after the Whitmore event, Sarah and David sat in a bank conference room, their best clothes pressed, their business plan printed and bound. Across from them, loan officer Patricia Williams reviewed their application with a poker face that revealed nothing. So you're requesting $50,000 to lease and outfit a small restaurant. Patricia summarized, with the intention of competing for a $200,000 corporate contract. Yes, Mom, David replied, his hands steady on the table. Our projections show. I can see your projections, Mr. Mitchell. What I'm more interested in is your partnership. You're listed as co-owners. But I see you were divorced 3 years ago. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. Yes, but we're business partners now for our daughter and our future. I see. Patricia made a note. Mrs. Mitchell, you have 15 years of steady employment. Mr. Mitchell, you have a 2-year gap followed by minimum wage work. Frankly, your credit is destroyed. David's jaw tightened, but he stayed calm. Yes, I made mistakes, but I'm rebuilding. Our business is proof of that. Your business is 3 months of farmers markets. Patricia said bluntly, I need more than mac and cheese samples to approve this loan. Sarah's heart sank. They'd been rejected by the banks already. Without capital, they couldn't bid for the Whitmore contract, couldn't grow beyond weekend markets. What would you need to see? Sarah asked desperately. Patricia leaned back. Collateral, a cosigner with established credit, or significantly more business history. I'm sorry, but wait. David pulled out his phone. What if we show you this? He played a video Emma had taken at last weekend's market. Lines of customers, empty pans by noon, testimonials from regulars, then photos from the Whitmore event, including one of Mr. Whitmore himself eating their food. Patricia watched, her expression softening slightly. This is impressive for word of mouth, but videos aren't collateral. They left the bank dejected. In the parking lot, Sarah fought back tears of frustration. We were so close, she said, so close to making it real. We'll find another way. David insisted, though he looked equally defeated. That evening, they were surprised by a knock at the apartment door. Sarah opened it to find Ms. Chen, the silver-haired judge from the competition. Mrs. Mitchell, I hope you don't mind I got your address from the competition files. Please, come in, Sarah said, confused. Can I get you some tea? Ms. Chen entered their modest apartment, taking in the business plan spread on the coffee table, Emma's drawings of their future restaurant taped to the walls. I heard about your success at Whitmore Industries, Ms. Chen said. Jennifer Kim is my niece. She told me you were rejected for the initial competition because you lacked business knowledge. Sarah nodded, embarrassed. I wasn't ready then, but you are now. Ms. Chen studied David. You must be the business partner Jennifer mentioned. David Mitchell. He extended his hand. Sarah's partner. Ms. Chen smiled at the careful phrasing. I'll be direct. I run a small investment firm focused on family businesses. I believe in second chances and people who learn from failure. Tell me about Emma's table. For the next hour, they presented their vision. David handled numbers while Sarah spoke about food and community. Emma even emerged from her room to offer Ms. Chen a drawing of their future restaurant, where everyone smiles. You were at the bank today, Ms. Chen observed. I'm guessing it didn't go well. They want collateral we don't have, David admitted. Miss Chen was quiet for a moment. I have a proposition. I'll invest $75,000 for a 20% stake in Emma's table. This gives you capital without debt. I'll also provide business mentorship. Sarah gasped. David's eyes widened. Why would you do this? Sarah asked. Because you remind me of my parents, Ms. Chen said simply, immigrants who started with nothing but a good recipe and determination. They faced every obstacle, language barriers, discrimination, poverty, but they built something lasting because they had each other. She looked between them. You'd have something rare, complementary skills and shared purpose. That's worth investing in. We accept, David said quickly, then looked at Sarah. I mean, if Sarah agrees. Sarah nodded, tears flowing freely. Yes, absolutely. Miss Chen smiled. Good. We'll formalize everything tomorrow. Now, might I try this famous mac and cheese? As Sarah hurried to the kitchen, David walked Miss Chen to the door. Thank you, he said quietly. You don't know what this means. I think I do, Miss Chen replied. Second chances are precious, Mr. Mitchell. Don't waste yours. After she left, Sarah and David stood in their tiny kitchen, the weight of the moment hitting them. We're really doing this, Sarah breathed. A real restaurant, with a real investor who believes in us, David added. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. Why are you both crying? Happy tears, baby, Sarah said, pulling her close. Remember that restaurant in your drawings? We're going to build it. Really? Emma's face lit up. With tables and everything, David confirmed, joining the hug. As they stood there, a family embracing in their cramped kitchen. Sarah thought about how far they'd come. From divorce to kidnapping to partnership to this, a real chance at their dreams. I love you both, Emma murmured, already falling back asleep against them. Sarah and David's eyes met over their daughter's head. So much remained unspoken between them, but in that moment, love for Emma, for their dream, maybe for each other, filled the small space. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and contracts and the hard work of building, but tonight, they were simply a family celebrating the impossible becoming possible. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the gleaming kitchen of Emma's table, their restaurant that had just completed its first week of operation. The smell of her signature mac and cheese filled the air, but this time from a professional 6-burner stove, not a cramped apartment kitchen. Order up to Southern Golds, 1 bacon deluxe, she called out, sliding plates across the pass to their server. Johnny, a single mother they'd hired who reminded Sarah of herself years ago. David appeared in the kitchen doorway, tablet in hand, his face glowing. Sarah, you need to see this. Can it wait? We've got 12 orders pending. The Whitmore contract. He interrupted. We got it. We won the bid. Sarah nearly dropped her ladle. Around her, the kitchen staff erupted in cheers. They competed against established catering companies, franchises with decades of experience, but they'd won. How? She breathed. Come see. David led her to the small office behind the kitchen, where Emma was doing homework. On his tablet was an email from Whitmore Industries. Look at the scoring breakdown. David pointed. Food quality perfect score. Innovation perfect score. But look at this, corporate social responsibility. Sarah read aloud. Emma's table demonstrates exceptional commitment to community employment and second chances. Their hiring practices and profit-sharing model align with our corporate values. We won because we hire people like us, David said softly, people who need another shot. Sarah felt tears threaten. Their staff included former addicts, older workers aged out of other jobs, immigrants with limited English. David had insisted on profit sharing from day one. Every employee owned a tiny piece of their dream. Mommy, Daddy, does this mean we're rich? Emma asked from her homework. No, baby, Sarah laughed. But it means we can pay everyone fairly and maybe save for college. And maybe, David added quietly, move to a bigger apartment, one where nobody has to sleep on the couch. Sarah met his eyes. They'd maintained separate spaces all these months, focusing on business over personal feelings. But lately, the boundaries had blurred. We should get back, Sarah said, flustered. The dinner rush. Sarah, wait. David caught her hand. We did it. We actually did it. From that motel room where I'd lost everything to this. I need you to know none of this happens without you believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Before Sarah could respond, Jana burst in. Sorry to interrupt, But we've got a problem. The new mac and cheese customers are sending it back. They rushed to the kitchen where their new cook, Marcus, looked panicked. I followed the recipe exactly. Sarah tasted the returned dish and immediately knew. You use pre-shredded cheese. My recipe needs block cheese, hand-shredded. The coating on pre-shredded prevents proper melting. I was trying to save time. No shortcuts on the signature dish. David said firmly, but kindly, that's what built this place. As Sarah showed Marcus the proper technique, she noticed a familiar face through the kitchen window, Mr. Whitmore himself, dining with what appeared to be board members. David, she whispered, Whitmore's here. David straightened his tie. Then we better make sure everything's perfect. The next hour was a ballet of precision. Sarah personally prepared Whitmore's table's order while David managed the front, ensuring seamless service. Emma, who'd finished her homework, helped fold napkins, charming guests with her enthusiasm. Finally, Whitmore approached the kitchen. Sarah braced herself, but his expression was unreadable. Mrs. Mitchell, he said formally, I wanted to inform you that the board was skeptical about awarding such a significant contract to an untested vendor. I insisted they dine here first. Sarah held her breath. They're convinced. He continued, your food is exceptional, but more importantly, your operation is professional. You built something impressive here. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore, Sarah managed. He turned to leave, then paused. I owe you an apology. For years, I overlooked talent in my own building because I couldn't see past job titles. That was my failure, not yours. After he left, the kitchen was silent. Then Marcus started clapping, followed by the entire staff. Sarah stood stunned as David pulled her into a hug. Did that just happen? She whispered against his shoulder. The man who wouldn't thank you for saving his $1 million contract just apologized publicly. David confirmed. You've come so far, Sarah. We've come far, she corrected, pulling back to look at him. I couldn't have done any of this without you. They stood there, surrounded by their team, their dream made real around them, the journey from cleaning lady to restaurant owner, from broken executive to successful entrepreneur, had been brutal. But they'd made it. Mommy, Daddy, are you going to kiss? Emma piped up, causing the staff to laugh. Sarah blushed, stepping back, but David held her gaze. Maybe not in the kitchen, princess. Health codes and all, but the look they shared promised. Conversations to come, possibilities beyond business partnership. For now, though, there were customers to serve, dreams to fulfill, and mac and cheese to perfect. Back to work, everyone, Sarah called out, but she was smiling. We've got a restaurant to run. The autumn rain drummed against the windows of Emma's table as Sarah finished reviewing the month's numbers. 3 months had passed since winning the Whitmore contract, and the transformation was staggering. What started as one small restaurant had exploded into a phenomenon. Sarah, you need to see this. David burst into the office, laptop in hand, his face glowing with excitement. The Times review just went live. Listen to this. Emma's table has redefined comfort food for a generation. Sarah Mitchell's mac and cheese isn't just a dish, it's a cultural moment. Sarah sank into her chair, overwhelmed. David, this is our 5th rave review this month. The Food Network wants to feature us. We have people driving 3 hours just to eat here, and that's not all. David pulled up their financial software. October's numbers. Sarah, we cleared $380,000 in profit this month alone. The numbers seemed impossible. 3 years ago, she'd been scraping together quarters for Emma's school lunch. Now they were making more in a month than she'd made in 15 years of cleaning. The franchise offers keep coming. David continued. That group from Texas is offering $2 million just for the rights to open Emma's table locations in Houston and Dallas. $2 million, Sarah whispered. David, we could be rich, actually rich. He sat beside her, taking her hands. We already are rich, Sarah. Look at this place. Look at what we built. The question is, what do we do with it? Over the following weeks, their success snowballed beyond their wildest dreams. A viral TikTok of a customer crying over their mac and cheese, it tastes like my grandma's love, garnered 50 million views. Suddenly, Emma's table wasn't just a restaurant, it was a movement. Mom, there's another news van outside, 16-year-old. Emma reported one morning, and about 100 people in line. It's 7 a.m. Sarah peeked outside. The line stretched around the block again. They'd had to hire security to manage crowds. Their staff had tripled. They were serving 1,000 customers a day. Good Morning America wants you both. For an interview, their new publicist, Karen, announced, they're doing a segment on American success stories. You're their lead, us. On national television, Sarah felt dizzy. The cleaning lady who became a millionaire, Karen said. The divorced couple who rebuilt their family through mac and cheese. America is going to eat this up, pun intended. That evening, as they closed up, David showed Sarah the latest offer. Sarah, sit down for this one. Kraft wants to buy our recipe. $25 million. Sarah's hand shook as she read the contract. $25 million. More money than generations of her family had seen combined. We could take it, David said carefully. Never work another day. Give Emma everything. Is that what you want? Sarah studied his face. I want what you want. We're partners, remember. Sarah looked around their restaurant, every table, every photo on the wall, every scratch in the kitchen they'd earned. Will we still run the restaurants? No. They'd want complete control. We'd be rich, but Emma's table wouldn't be ours anymore. Then no, Sarah said firmly. This place, our recipes, our story is not for sale. We'll franchise on our terms, grow on our terms. David smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Though turning down $25 million, my father would have thought we were insane. Good thing he's not here then, Sarah said, then softened. I'm sorry. That was cruel. No, it was honest. You're right. Money isn't everything, though having it doesn't hurt. They both laughed, still adjusting to their new reality. Their personal accounts now held more money than they dreamed possible. Emma's college fund could pay for any university in the world. They paid off every debt, bought a beautiful home, set up trusts for their employees. You know, what's funny, Sarah mused. I spent so many years thinking if I just had money, everything would be perfect. But the problems don't go away, they just change. What problems could we possibly have? David asked. Emma's getting famous at school, not always in a good way. Kids calling her mac and cheese princess, some saying we bought our success. She's handling it, but it's hard, and us, David prompted gently. They've been dating for 2 years now, taking it slow as promised, but lately, things have felt stalled. I'm scared, Sarah admitted. We work perfectly as business partners. What if taking the next step ruins that? What if we're using the business as an excuse to avoid dealing with us? David finished. The question hung between them, uncomfortable and true. The Good Morning America interview is next week. Sarah changed the subject. We should practice what we're going to say. David let it go, but she saw the hurt in his eyes. They were millionaires now, successful beyond measure, but some things money couldn't fix. As they locked up, Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Guys, there's something trending on Twitter about Dad. You might want to see this. Sarah's blood ran cold. In their newfound fame, reporters had been digging into their past. What if they'd found out about the kidnapping? David, she showed him the phone. His face went pale. Let's get home now. The drive felt endless, both their minds racing with possibilities. Their success had made them public figures. If the kidnapping story came out now, twisted by social media, it could destroy everything, not the money, but their reputation, Emma's peace, their family's healing. Whatever happens, David said as they pulled up to their house, we face it together, together. Sarah agreed, but fear gnawed at her. They'd overcome poverty and failure. But could they survive success and scrutiny? Emma met them at the door, laptop in hand. Dad, someone leaked your old LinkedIn. They found posts from when you were an executive. The things you said about Mom's job. Sarah's heart sank. She knew exactly which posts. David bragging about his trophy wife while dismissing her work, making jokes about marrying down for love. The words he'd written in his arrogant past were about to collide with their carefully rebuilt present. How bad is it? David asked, his voice hollow. It's going viral, Emma said quietly. They're calling you a hypocrite, saying you built a fortune on Mom's talent while publicly mocking her. The hashtag cleaning lady deserves better is trending. Sarah watched David crumble. All their success meaningless in the face of his past shame returning. The man who kidnapped their daughter out of desperation was about to face public judgment. For the man he'd been before that, the one who'd broken Sarah's heart with his pride. We'll fix this, Sarah said, though she didn't know how. We've faced worse. But as she held her family close, Sarah wondered if that was true. They'd survived being broken and poor, Could they survive being successful and exposed? Sarah noticed the changes before she understood them. David coming home later, the new perfume scent on his shirts, the way he avoided her eyes during their morning meetings. After 3 years of rebuilding their marriage alongside their empire, something was terribly wrong. The Phoenix group wants to meet Tuesday, David said over breakfast, not looking up from his tablet. They're interested in franchising 50 locations. That's wonderful, Sarah replied, watching him closely. Will Jennifer be at the meeting? David's coffee mug paused halfway to his lips. Why would you ask that? She's your executive assistant. I assumed she'd handle the contracts. Yes, of course, she'll be there. He stood abruptly. I should get to the office. Sarah watched him leave, her heart heavy with suspicion. Jennifer Hayes, 28, Harvard MBA, hired 6 months ago when they'd expanded to 200 locations. Beautiful, brilliant, and exactly the type of woman old David would have noticed. Emma, now 14, looked up from her cereal. Mom, why does Dad seem weird lately? He's just stressed about the expansion, honey, but Sarah knew better. That night, she did something she'd never thought she'd do. She drove to the corporate office at 9 p.m. David's car was there, so was Jennifer's, with trembling hands. Sarah used her key to enter the building. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt endless. As she approached David's office, she heard laughter, Jennifer's tinkling laugh, David's deep chuckle, the one that used to be reserved for her. Sarah opened the door without knocking. They weren't touching, but the scene was intimate enough. Jennifer perched on David's desk, shoes off, wine glasses between them, paper scattered, forgotten. Sarah, David jumped up, guilt written across his face. We were just working late, Sarah finished coldly. I could see that. Jennifer had the grace to look ashamed, sliding off the desk and fumbling for her shoes. Mrs. Mitchell, we were reviewing the Phoenix contracts at 9 p.m. with wine. Sarah's voice remained steady, though her heart was shattering. Jennifer, please leave. Now, after Jennifer scurried out, Sarah closed the door and faced her husband. How long? Sarah, nothing happened. Don't lie to me, David. Not after everything we've been through. How long have you been having an affair? David sank into his chair, suddenly looking older than his 4 to 7 years. It's not. We haven't. Sarah, I swear we haven't slept together. But you want to. The silence was answer enough. She makes me feel successful again, David whispered, like the executive I used to be, not the failure who kidnapped his daughter. When she looks at me, she sees a CEO, not a broken man you had to save. Sarah felt the tears come then. So I'm what? Your constant reminder of rock bottom. No, Sarah, you're everything. You saved me. But sometimes I feel like I'm still that desperate man in the motel. And you're still the one holding all the cards. With Jennifer, I could be someone new. Someone who betrays his wife. Who throws away his family for an ego boost. Sarah's voice rose. David, we built this together. No, David said bitterly. We built it on your recipe, your talent, your forgiveness. I'm just the numbers guy who follows you around, grateful you didn't have me arrested. Sarah stared at him, seeing clearly for the first time in months. Success hadn't healed David's shame, it had only masked it. And now, with a young woman's admiration as balm for his wounds, he was ready to throw everything away. What do you want, David? I don't know, he admitted. When I'm with her, I forget what I did, forget what I lost. Feel like the man I was supposed to be. The man who mocked his wife's job, who valued money over family. That man. David flinched. That's not fair. Fair? Sarah laughed bitterly. Fair is me standing by you through bankruptcy, through kidnapping, through rebuilding. Fair is creating an empire together, and you throwing it away for a fantasy. Her phone rang. Their CFO, at this late hour, with shaking hands, she answered, Sarah, we have a massive problem. The Phoenix deal is a setup. They're a shell company backed by our biggest competitor. They've been gathering intel through someone inside. If we'd signed Tuesday, they'd have owned our recipes, our processes, everything. Sarah's blood ran cold. She looked at David. Did you share our proprietary information with Jennifer? David's face went white. She said she needed it for the contracts. Oh, David. Sarah sank into a chair. What have you done? The next 3 hours were a blur of emergency calls. Their lawyer confirmed the worst. Jennifer Hayes wasn't even her real name. She was corporate spy, placed specifically to seduce David and steal their secrets. She'd already transmitted enough information to destroy their competitive advantage. We can sue, the lawyer said over speakerphone, but the damage is done. They know your recipes, your suppliers, your expansion plans. You'll lose at least 60% of market value when this gets out. After hanging up, Sarah and David sat in silence in the office where they'd celebrated so many victories. I destroyed us, David said finally, again. I destroyed everything we built. Yes. Sarah agreed quietly. You did. Sarah, I'm so sorry. She played me like a fool. The attention, the admiration, I was so pathetic for it. I handed her everything. Sarah stood, exhausted beyond measure. I need to go home. Emma needs to know what's happening before she hears it elsewhere. What do I tell her? The truth. That her father's pride cost us everything again. The next weeks were brutal. The news broke. Mac and Cheese empire crumbles in corporate espionage. Scandal. Their stock price plummeted. Franchisees panicked. Competitors launched copycat products using their stolen recipes. They had to sell 180 of their 200 locations to pay legal fees and settlements. Their home, their cars, most of their savings gone. What had taken 5 years to build crumbled in 5 weeks. On a rainy Thursday, Sarah stood in the empty corporate office, now for sale. David found her there, looking haggard. The lawyers say if we sell the remaining 20 locations, we can break even, start over somewhere else. No, Sarah said firmly, we keep the original, the one that started it all. Sarah, that barely makes enough to survive on. Then we survive, like we did before. She turned to face him. David, I've thought about this for weeks. I should leave you. Any sane woman would. I know, he whispered. I wouldn't blame you. But Emma still needs her father, and despite everything, I still see the man who stood in that motel room, broken and desperate for help. You're there again, aren't you? David nodded, tears flowing freely. I threw away our empire for a woman who didn't even use her real name. How do I come back from this? The same way you did before, one day at a time, one choice at a time. Sarah took a deep breath. But David, this is it, your last chance. We go back to running one restaurant. We live simply, we rebuild not the empire, but us. Can you do that? Can you be satisfied with small and real instead of big and impressive? Sarah, I don't deserve, no, you don't, but Emma deserves parents who fight for each other, even when it's hard. So I'm asking, can you be satisfied with just us? No. Executive title, no corporate office, no young assistants to stroke your ego. Just making mac and cheese and raising our daughter. David fell to his knees, sobbing. Yes, God, yes. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I lost sight of everything that mattered. Again, Sarah helped him up, her own tears flowing. Then let's go home. What's left of it? They moved to a small apartment near their original restaurant. Emma, remarkably resilient, adjusted to public school and a simpler life. At least we're together, she said. That's what matters, right? The original Emma's table still drew loyal customers who remembered their beginning. They made enough to pay bills, save a little. Live quietly, David worked the register, washed dishes, did whatever needed doing without complaint. His penance, he called it. One evening, 6 months after losing everything, Sarah found David teaching Emma to make mac and cheese in their tiny kitchen. The secrets and the timing, he explained. Your mom taught me that. About cheese and about life. Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember what's important. Emma hugged him. I'm glad you remembered, Dad. Sarah watched them, her broken, rebuilding family. They'd had it all 300 locations, billions in offers, success beyond dreams. Now they had one restaurant, a 2-bedroom apartment, and each other. Any regrets? David asked her later, after Emma was asleep. Only one, Sarah said, that you had to fall twice to learn the lesson, but I learned it. David said, Jennifer offered me everything I thought I wanted: youth, admiration, a fresh start. But she couldn't offer what you do. What's that? Home, forgiveness, real love that sees all my failures and chooses to stay. He took her hand. Sarah, I know I don't deserve you, but I promise no more faults. No more forgetting what matters. Sarah squeezed his hand. Just make good mac and cheese and love your family, David. That's all I need. They sat in their small kitchen, poorer in money, but richer in wisdom. Tomorrow they'd open the restaurant, serve their customers, live their small life. But tonight, they were simply Sarah and David. Proof that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. The empire was gone, the fortune was lost, but the family tested by betrayal, refined by loss remained, and in the end, that was worth more than all the franchises in the world. 10 years had passed since they lost everything to David's pride and Jennifer's deception. Sarah stood in the kitchen of their original Emma's table, the only restaurant they'd managed to keep, stirring a pot of mac and cheese as she had thousands of times before. Her hair, now touched with silver, was pulled back in the same practical style she'd worn as a cleaning lady. "Order up," she called, sliding plates across the worn counter to Rosie, their waitress of 8 years. The restaurant was small, but always full, beloved by locals who remembered when it all began. David emerged from the back office, glasses perched on his nose, ledger in hand. At 57, he moved with the quiet confidence of a man who learned his worth wasn't in titles, but in service. "Sarah, Mrs. Patterson wants to know if we can cater her granddaughter's wedding. Nothing fancy, just 40 portions of the mac and cheese, of course." Sarah smiled. "Tell her we'd be honored." They'd become fixtures in the neighborhood, the couple who'd had it all, lost it all, and found peace in simplicity. David hadn't touched alcohol since the Jennifer disaster, attended therapy faithfully, and every night thanked God and Sarah for third chances. "Mom, Dad," Emma burst through the door, 24 now and glowing with youth. Behind her, a young man carried a toddler. "Sorry we're late." James Jr. was fussing. Sarah's heart swelled as her grandson reached for her. "There's my boy. Come to Grandma." Emma had surprised them all by marrying young, not to someone flashy or rich, but to James Chen, a social worker who understood the value of family over fortune. They lived modestly, Emma teaching at the local elementary school while finishing her master's in education. "Guess what?" Emma beamed. "I'm pregnant again. James Jr. is going to be a big brother." David's eyes filled with tears as he hugged his daughter. "Another blessing. Your mother and I have been praying for this." "Really, Dad? You pray now?" Emma teased gently. "Every day," David said seriously. "Gratitude is my daily practice. For your mother's forgiveness, for you, for James, for this little one, for lessons learned the hard way." As they celebrated the news over mac and cheese, still the best in the state, Sarah watched her husband with their grandson. David had become the man she'd always believed he could be. Not the arrogant executive or the broken failure, but someone deeper, wiser, humbled by life and strengthened by grace. "Grandpa, story," James Jr. demanded, and David settled him on his lap. "Once upon a time," David began, "there was a foolish man who thought money made him important. He had a castle with 300 rooms, but he forgot that home isn't about how big your house is." Sarah smiled, recognizing the cautionary tale David told all the neighborhood children, his own story, transformed into wisdom for the next generation. That evening, after Emma's family left and the restaurant closed, Sarah and David sat on the bench outside, the same bench where she'd collapsed when he called about taking Emma 20 years ago. "Any regrets?" David asked. "Their nightly ritual." "Not anymore," Sarah said honestly. "You?" "Only that it took me so long to see. But maybe," he paused, choosing words carefully, "maybe we needed to climb that high to understand the fall. Maybe Emma needed to see us lose everything and choose each other anyway." "You've become quite the philosopher, Mr. Mitchell." "I've had a good teacher, Mrs. Mitchell." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear over their small corner of the world. Tomorrow would bring familiar rhythms, mac and cheese to make, customers to serve, grandchildren to spoil. Their empire was gone, but their legacy lived on in smaller ways. Emma's compassion, James Jr.'s laughter, the 100 small kindnesses they performed daily. "David," Sarah said suddenly, "I need to tell you something." He turned, concerned. "What is it?" "I'm grateful for all of it, even the pain, because it brought us here." She gestured at their simple life. "We're not rich, but we're wealthy. You understand the difference now." "I do," David said softly. "Wealth is Emma coming by every Sunday. Wealth is you still choosing me every morning. Wealth is making honest mac and cheese for honest people. Wealth is being able to sleep peacefully because I have no secrets, no shame, nothing but gratitude." A year later, at Emma's table's 25th anniversary celebration, the small restaurant overflowed with people whose lives they touched. Not employees of a vast empire, but neighbors, friends, customers who'd become family. Emma stood to speak, baby. Sophie in her arms, James Jr. at her feet. My parents taught me that success isn't measured in franchises or bank accounts. It's measured in forgiveness given, wisdom earned, and love that endures. They lost an empire, but gained something eternal, proof that broken people can build beautiful lives. David reached for Sarah's hand under the table. She squeezed back, their wedding rings worn thin from years of dishes washed, bread kneaded, life lived honestly. Thank you, he whispered, as he did every day. For what? She asked, though she knew. For seeing past the fool to find the man. For teaching me that mac and cheese made with love in one small kitchen is worth more than 300 restaurants built on pride. The party continued around them, laughter. Stories, simple food served with generous hearts. Marcus stopped by from Detroit, where he managed a small restaurant inspired by their example. Jana came from Atlanta, where she'd opened a soup kitchen using their recipes. Seeds planted in failure had bloomed into a different kind of success. As the evening ended, Sarah and David cleaned up together as they had for 10 years side by side. No longer CEO and founder, but simply husband and wife, partners in the truest sense. 5 years later, when David passed peacefully in his sleep at 62, his heart, weakened by years of stress, finally giving out, Sarah found a letter in his desk. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, then my time of making amends is over. Thank you for 3 chances when I deserved none. Thank you for showing me that falling from the heights only hurts if you refuse to learn from the landing. Tell Emma I loved her every day, even when I was too proud to show it properly. Tell our grandchildren that Grandpa's greatest achievement wasn't building an empire, but learning to wash dishes with gratitude. The restaurant is yours, as it always was. My only request, keep making the mac and cheese with love. Keep hiring people who need second chances. Keep proving that success isn't what you have, but who you become. I love you beyond words, beyond mistakes, beyond time. Your devoted husband, David. I never did master the 5-cheese blend, but I mastered loving you. That's enough. Sarah ran Emma's table for another 15 years, training her grandchildren in both recipes and values. When she finally retired at 75, passing the restaurant to Emma and James, she'd served over 1 million meals, not across an empire, but from one small kitchen filled with love. The newspaper ran a small obituary when Sarah Mitchell died peacefully at 81. Local restaurant owner, beloved by community. It didn't mention the empire built and lost, the kidnapping forgiven, the fortunes rejected. It simply noted that she'd fed people good food and given second chances, and they were wealthy indeed, not in dollars or franchises, but in love multiplied, wisdom earned, forgiveness given, and mac and cheese that tasted like grace. Their true fortune lived on not in 300 restaurants, but in one small place where broken people learned they were worth more than their mistakes. The secret ingredient had never been in the recipe. It had always been in the choosing to fall, to rise, to love, to lose, to love again, forever and ever, one meal at a time, one grace at a time, until the last plate was served and the eternal feast began.